So, you have felt that sinking feeling, that one that hits at 2 a.m. when you can't sleep because the IRS letters keep piling up? When tax season feels like countdown to disaster instead of an opportunity? You're not alone in that fear, and today's conversation might just change everything. Welcome to the Tax Answers Advisor. This is Marcelino Dodge, enrolled agent and certified tax representation consultant. Today, we discuss how to transform financial chaos into clarity for business owners and entrepreneurs who thought they were out of options. Look beyond just tax preparation and build financial futures. Your business journey isn't perfect, isn't finished, and doesn't have to be. It just has to keep moving forward. Today, we're talking about how to turn tax burden into tax strategy and how to finally stop running from the IRS and start running toward the empire you deserve to build. But if you are facing IRS tax debt, unfiled tax returns, or overwhelming tax stress that just keeps you up at night, don't wait another day. Visit taxreliefcall.com to start getting tax relief now. My team specializes in helping people just like you find real solutions and peace of mind. Today, we have a very special guest, Ryan Otto, president and owner of Accent Financial Services. So Ryan, first of all, I want to thank you for coming on the program today and invite you to introduce yourself and just share some of your background.
Yeah. Marcelino, thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited to talk about these things. I geek out about tax stuff in a way that unsettles many people. So it's nice to have good conversations about these. Yes, my name is Ryan Otto, obviously. I own a tax firm where we help people with past taxes, tax filings, and stuff like that. We also help with bookkeeping and accounting, and most notably tax strategy. And so over the years, one of the things that we were finding is being just a reactive firm was not getting our clients really all of the things, the knowledge that we wanted them to have and the momentum that we wanted them to have. So we built what we call Taxsmithing, and it's all about how to create strategies to minimize your tax liability and to help you build your future in a way that's going to do some asset protection along the way and help you build your income and everything. And for me, it's a culmination of years worth of thinking about, oh, we should help people with this thing, or maybe we can do this thing. And I love it. And it's really our thing. And that's all I'm really even talking about these days is how do we get people better strategies to move themselves forward?
Yes, people certainly need strategies in these days of ever-changing tax rules and laws and stuff. And they're certainly confused about it, but we're certainly going to help with some of that today. Ryan, but in our conversations and looking into your background, comes across that you actually started bookkeeping for your father's business as a kid. So how do those early days help to influence you approach clients' relationships and the financial strategies today?
Yeah. So, I didn't even remember that I used to help my dad with accounting stuff until I actually started doing accounting work like 10 years later. And I was explaining my story to somebody and I was like, oh yeah, I actually started that a long time ago. I used to think of it as just kind of a fun computer thing because I was using a Mac Plus. I had Excel back when it was only made for Apple.
Wow.
No, a long time ago. And so I think about some of that stuff, and that's where my Excel adventures began, which really turned into most of my accounting adventures, which turned into my tax adventures. And it's fun to think about. You're like, oh yeah, well, I was just helping him send invoices to people and putting stuff on. If you remember a Mac Plus, the screen was like yay big. That was what we did back then. But my dad was an amazing salesperson. And all along the way, and I had an opportunity to work with him. We had our own company for a while also. But to the understanding of how to deal with customers really came from him. And he had this one thing, I still remember it on his wall. And it said, the customer is not an interruption of our work. They are the purpose of our work. And I think that really shaped how I think about that too. And I spent a lot of years in hospitality, which I think only reinforced
Hmm.
that the client is why we are doing these things. So,
Well, that's interesting because as I was talking to ones too, it's interesting because it sounds like your background, you didn't actually go into tax accounting work right away. It's something that you maybe went into a little bit later, it sounds like, right?
yeah, I mean, I took a job. My first accounting job was as a payroll clerk
Hmm.
working for a hotel back when I was going to college. One thing led to another over the years.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. I don't meet many individuals who have a variety like you who's in this kind of tax work because myself, I like sharing how my story is. And I always tell people my first passion was not accounting and taxes. In fact, I always tell people my first passion when I thought I was going to go into the radio broadcasting industry, that's what my college degree is in. That's what everything is. But it took me 10 years to figure out, you know what? I think I like to do taxes better. And so since that time, I've been working on taxes. Then a few years later, I got my enrolled agent designation. And so I've just been going full steam ahead since then. So like you, I do have a lot of different perspective. And I had worked in some hospitality. I worked in different other sales things before I settled into what I'm doing. So I look at myself as someone who also has a different perspective on how looking at clients, communicating with clients, how important that is and how we need to treat them. And I really like that sign you mentioned there of how they are the purpose of our work and that we need to think about the people. So certainly that's a big start, whether you're doing strategizing that you're talking about, or even when people come into my office or call me and they're scared out of their wits because they owe money, X amount of dollars. I mean, $400,000 more to the IRS. They have unfiled tax returns, all this kind of stuff. And so that's where I got to come in and just show the kindness, the patience, and say, hey, let's just get this fixed. It is your problem, but let's get it fixed and then you can move forward. So that's where having
Yeah.
a background, a good business background can make a huge difference when you haven't been just doing tax and accounting work all your life. So I think that kind of makes me stand out a little bit as well, different because I do have that genuine care for people, recognizing that they do have those needs and it's important.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that kind of always strikes me about this industry too, and I think you touched on it very well. When people are walking into our doors, they're walking in a vulnerable position. They're scared. They're ashamed of what has happened. And what they most need at that point is somebody who understands there's emotion to the situation, but also we have the knowledge where we can help you fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know about you, but I find it just amazingly rewarding to be able to help people out of those types of things. You try to explain the world of tax and accounting to people, and it's not a thing that you think to talk about. It was like, yeah, and we helped these people the other day, and it just like, it felt so good.
Mm-hmm. It does feel good. It's that relieving feeling knowing that you've done what it takes, or at least I've done what it takes. You've had it too, and you just experienced that. When, in my case, someone walks in, has a $400,000 notice from the IRS because the IRS filed a substitute tax return, and then takes a little bit, you go through it, and you get a few months later, it's like, oh, they're relieved. And boy, that is a really good feeling to be able to help people to not have to pay that. But like I say, everybody's circumstances are different. Not to say I can do that on everybody, but we do the best we can with the circumstances and IRS guidelines to help them to feel that relief, help them to sleep good at night there. Because what we see is that we have a lot of people with small business ownership, and that's usually the ones that get into trouble, are small business owners. So as we see, you've worked for both Fortune 500 and corporate finance and small business. So how do those experiences, obviously they're contrasting, how do those shape your perspective when it comes to tax strategy and advisory?
They are very, very different worlds. And every once in a while, I have an opportunity to bring in a team member who is from the corporate world and hasn't yet touched the world of small business, and to watch as everything dawns on them, like, hey, there is no structure for this. And one of them told me, like, I don't know, small business seems like the wild, wild west, and I don't understand the wild, wild west. And I look at some of those things and I think, okay, is there a benefit to structure? Having rules for things and having your company built a certain way and your client relationships built in a certain way. Yeah, there's some benefits to building that, with intentionality. But there's also meeting people where they are.
Hmm.
And in the world of small business, almost every story is different.
Hmm.
And so you work with somebody who's like, hey, I come from a big company and, we've got our HR department that does this and our payroll department does this and you've got all these things. And most big businesses have all of those same pieces. And most small businesses, they don't have any of those pieces. They're like,
Hmm.
it's a shoestring. So I think the understanding of both of those worlds is really important to have. And then when you take on clients that are working on crossing over to that next level, that's also really interesting. And to be able to speak to somebody about, well, now is the time that you actually, let's get you an HR person because you have enough employees that it really makes sense for you to do that. And as a small business, you're like, why would I need an HR person? I just hired the people that I need to. And so this crossover that becomes really fascinating to see as well.
Oh yeah, there is some crossover. As you know, the Fortune 500, they have the individual departments that cover each of those roles. Whereas a small business owner, it's just them, their HR, their payroll, they're all those items all wrapped into one. And that's of course why you've had some of these other various other businesses pop up to help small business people with those things because so many of those areas are so complicated, which is why so many of them will look for somewhere to outsource the payroll, for example, because that's usually one of the most complicated things for a business owner to try to do if they have employees. So,
Yeah.
which is one of the biggest reasons small businesses get into tax trouble too, is because they don't pay their payroll taxes, which
Yeah,
is often
absolutely.
which is why we have to dig them out of those holes at times and help them to get through that as well. So that's a whole nother discussion just on payroll taxes. So
Yeah, definitely.
we'll continue on here. You have an interesting program that you built called Taxsmithing. That it's a proprietary system that you use that takes it different from traditional tax planning approaches. Now, you've probably heard this before, but this certainly makes me think of like blacksmithing, like somehow pounding iron. I don't know if that's anywhere close to what you're talking about. That when I hear that, that's what that makes me think of there. So,
It's exactly what we're going for. Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah. What we wanted to kind of convey to people is there is an art to this.
Mm-hmm.
And not only do you have to know when to hit the metal or when to pick a tax strategy, you have to know what circumstances you're doing. You have to know where you're going to hit it. You have to hit it at the right time. And all of those things take an expertise that is not ordinary, right? And you think about cities and towns in the past, and you might have one blacksmith who was the guy who really understood, here's where I hit this thing in order to fix it or in order to break it. And yeah, so that's exactly the imagery that we're kind of going for is we're helping you to do things in just the right way with a strategy that is not what you're going to get from most places because we have developed our own tools, just as blacksmiths used to do. Like you have to make your tools in order to make stuff for other people. We've made our own tools to do this stuff. Yeah, so there's definitely a theme for us.
Oh, okay. So that's very nice. And so very nice and be able to get something like that organized because, yeah, an art, usually when it comes to anything arty, I'm not very good or very creative, but on the tax side, I work at it and do an excellent job at it because it's more within my realm as the other creativity thing. Like I probably couldn't actually do blacksmithing because of just, I can barely pound a nail. But anyway, that's a whole nother thing. So anyway, also wanted to touch on here, you have your podcast here called Unfinished Empires. That's a very nice title there, but why did you not select perhaps something like maybe Successful Empires or Thriving Empires there? So what drove you to take the Unfinished Empires name on that?
I was sitting around talking with a couple of people and fellow entrepreneurs. And it occurred to me as we were discussing, like, oh, well, what are you working on next? And what are you working on next? That we had never had a conversation where we didn't have something that we were working on next. And just kind of ruminating on that, like the entrepreneur mindset it's just a little bit different from regular, ordinary, I'm going to have a W-2 job and go to work and go home kind of people. And so it's just we're constantly building things. We're constantly trying to figure out what the next step is, or what the next phase is, or what the next thing is that we're going to build. And it's a fascinating perspective, I think, to talk with people like that who are building things. And I think not only is it good for entrepreneurs to be like, listen, I'm not alone, because other people are trying to build their stuff too. And it's not easy, because entrepreneurship can be strangely lonely. But at the same time, for other people to get a glimpse into this world and be like, you know what, I never knew that that's what people are thinking about, or that's, that there even was a way of getting involved in these things. And maybe I kind of like it, and maybe I want to do that.
That's great. And I really appreciate that, because we really think about small business owners. It is like an unfinished empire, because you're constantly trying to build something, trying to build it up a little bit more, to always, okay, this is what we did last year. How can we build upon that in coming into, well, at this point, 2026? But then we always need some assistance in doing so. And sometimes it takes a little bit of a challenge to start releasing certain responsibilities so that they can grow. So there, as you mentioned, unfinished empire, but that also means change. That means adjustment. That means you need to be willing to outsource some things, potentially like payroll, or get some good tax advice and strategy. Go into perhaps use your program, the Taxsmithing, and so on. So that's why it's never really complete, because you have to keep a little bit going on, because people are going to come, people are going to go, but you keep working on your area. So that's what makes that so excellent, and having such a name, because you're technically, your business never really is finished. Even for my thought, that's even my initial thought. Oh yeah, that makes sense. I hadn't really thought about it that way, but it does make a whole lot of sense. The fact that, you do need to keep, you're never really finished, because you're always going along. You just got to change the way you do it and adjust it so that you're managing the business and the business isn't managing you. But that's, once again, gets into another topic area that could be a whole new podcast on itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, we've also touched a little bit on your approach. You mentioned about demystifying complex financial issues. So what are these misconceptions business owners have when it comes to tax reduction and wealth building?
The most common thing is, let's sit down and do it once, and we'll make the plan, and then we'll never have to talk about it again. That happens just far too frequently. We had to start building around that, because what would happen, we would have a meeting with the client, and we would give them all of these ideas. And then somewhere between our office and the parking lot, most of the stuff, fell out of their ears. And then the rest of it came out on the drive home. And a year later, we would sit down with them and be like, yeah, so did you do any of those things? Like, what happened? Were you able to pull this off? Like, oh, yeah, I didn't really do any of that. So there was this sense that when they had the meeting, they're like, okay, great. Here's all of the things to do. And now we've talked about it and we've figured it out, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. But there's always the rest of the work that has to be done. And then every time life changes, you might have to make adjustments to it. Mm-hmm. So it really needs to be a relationship. It needs to be an ongoing conversation where people feel comfortable enough talking to us and just saying, oh yeah, by the way, I got married last year and they have such and such a thing. And we're going to take, they had a house, I had a house, and we're going to rent one of them out, and all this stuff. And you're like, okay, well, yeah, we need to make some adjustments to your tax return, but also like there's some things that you could be doing that can save you money, or to position yourself in a different way, because your life changed. And I find that a lot of times people don't understand that what we want to build, what you and I are trying to do, is have relationships with clients. Yes. And I think that gets overlooked a lot of times. And it's something that it's important to our industry to understand that that really is the role that we ought to have when talking to people.
Yeah. And oftentimes I have found that people that, at least for me, the way it's gone, I've often been able to build relationships more with people who I've had to fix their back's tax problems for. Usually, for some reason, those people who got behind or for whatever reason are unable to pay, at least in my experience, they're usually more open to that kind of pricing and that kind of relationship with the tax professional because they want to avoid that situation in the future.
Yeah.
They don't want to have that
Absolutely.
happen again to them. So they want to be able to strategize and plan, but yet it would be so much better. I mean, yes, I'm willing to help you and I'm willing to get it done. You're going to pay me a lot of money to do it. I'm not going to beat around the bush about it, but you will pay me a lot of money to get it done. And we'll keep you going forward. But why have to do that in the first place? Why don't we just get into that relationship, demystify those issues, put in those strategies. Don't let it get lost between being in the office and getting out to the parking lot. I love that because that's what it feels like for me sometimes. But yeah, let's try to get that built up and try to do that and avoid having to have the tax representation in the first place. But yet, if you do need that service, we can certainly help you. And one thing we want to think about too is that if you do need to have back tax returns filed, get things with the IRS straightened out, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars or whatever, that doesn't mean you can't start implementing stuff going forward. You can work on the past and work on the future all at the same time. This is one of the circumstances where you can actually do that. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And to me, every business owner, every individual, you have to build your team.
mm-hmm.
And not everybody does everything, right? So we do tax strategy and, we'll call it financial strategy sometimes. Every once in a while, somebody will slip in financial planning. Mm-hmm. And I have to say, no, we don't do financial planning. That's not our thing, but I've got a guy for that. Mm-hmm. Marcelino, he's the guy for if you're behind on taxes and you have problems to solve, let me send you to this guy. Mm-hmm. We're going to keep building our strategy, but he's going to handle that part of it. And you work on that while we work on this. And you work on your retirement plan while we're talking about building your real estate empire, right? And yeah, there are so many different pieces, but they don't all have to wait, like you were saying.
Yeah, that's where professionals like us can work together and actually be part of a team for individuals that though you're in Texas and I'm in Colorado, I can still work on an IRS issue for someone in Texas. We can still get it done. And so that's the real great part about just being able to work together as tax professionals is that there's almost no state boundaries when it comes to it. I can work anywhere in the country and help somebody solve issues, which I have done there. So, and there's ways to get it done. Very easy.
100%. Yeah. Not to say that some states aren't more complicated than others.
Oh, some states are definitely, yeah. When you start dealing with state issues, that's a whole nother ball game. But because states are always harder to deal with than the IRS, in my experience, and a lot of professionals, colleagues say the same thing, and some states are definitely worse than others. Now, Texas, of course, you don't have the income tax issues, but you have other tax issues that can hit. So
we do. Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like we're constantly helping people whose Texas is a little bit, I don't know if aggressive is the right word, but when it comes to business entities, they don't wait around for very long. If you haven't filed your reports, then they say, okay, great. Then you're not a business anymore. You didn't make this payment or you didn't file this report. And they're like, okay, you're done. And then fighting to get people back into good standing with the state. There's days I feel like I could start a whole nother business just doing that. It's so much. And, other states are far more complicated than Texas.
Yeah. So as we think about it, and we're in that time of year where people treat tax planning as, oh, this is a March and April kind of thing, which is basically reactive. We're always reporting on the past for those business owners instead of looking toward the future. How do we get them to shift? And we've discussed some ways, but what other ways have you gotten ones to shift and even start looking at results there because they've made such a shift to being proactive?
For us, it's really about communicating ideas and then trying to continue that conversation, continue that education. So for us, we have a newsletter. We put it out every week and we're like, listen, here's some things that you need to know. And then every week we talk about, here's a new IRS law that you need to have in mind, or here's a new tax strategy that you might want to think about. And anytime you guys think about these things, drop on our calendar for 15 minutes and we'll talk about it. Because we just want to keep everything top of mind. So some months we're going to talk about, hey, your taxes are due in March or in April. And then in other months, we're going to be like, okay, you made it halfway through the year. How are you doing on your bookkeeping? Have you done all of that yet? Do you have somebody in place? We definitely talk about strategy. People reach out for strategy in January and February. And we said, well, it's too late right now. You can contribute to your 401k if you have any of that left. But, as far as building stuff, you can't go back in time. So now's when we do it. And we make sure that you're going to be set up for next year.
Yeah.
Let's go. But it really is just having tax and accounting things as something that anybody thinks about on a regular basis is exceedingly difficult. And so for us, it's just how many times can we touch them and put something in front of their face where maybe they'll notice this month and say something.
Yeah. And hopefully they'll notice and hopefully they will read the stuff. I mean, I have a email newsletter myself that does go out to mine's once a month, but yeah, you hope they kind of motivates ones to kind of take action or even start the conversation at least to come in and sit down and do it. So yeah. And that's once again, we're talking preventive medicine here so that you don't get behind in the tax. You don't have to have someone come in and help you to fix issues. Let's just not even have the issues get created. Let's move forward there. And compliance issues are certainly some things that always come up there when you're dealing with tax. One of the interesting points here is that you've been featured on Texas Insider discussing various compliance issues. So are there some new requirements that business owners need to take into consideration, like right now, that you've seen?
Yeah, so for business owners, so last year it was all about BOI.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the new big thing, and everybody had to do it by this deadline. Oh, just kidding. Now you have to do it by this deadline. Oh, well, actually, we're going to extend it. Now you have to do it by this deadline. And then all of a sudden, you're like, okay, now you don't have to do it all. Unless it's blah, 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 which nobody is. Like, okay, you don't have to do it. But it's still a law, actually. It's just they're not enforcing it the way that they said they were going to. Mm-hmm. And that kind of stuff, I think, can sneak up on people. And that's one of the reasons why we try to put interesting IRS tidbits in our stuff, because things will change that you just don't hear about it. I was amazed by the BOI stuff. Nobody heard about it for years. Like the CTA was passed years before that.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, we get to the end of the year and everybody is saying, oh my gosh, do I have to go do this thing? Yeah, that's why we've been talking about it for a year now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it is definitely, when you think about the new tax laws, and last year, the one big beautiful bill, it changed a bunch of things. And I still think there's people trying to unravel all of the different pieces to it. So, you hear about some of the popular stuff, like no tax on tips and no tax on overtime. And those things are talked about and widely known. But there's also some really cool stuff in it. Like for business owners, for example, the qualified business stock. That's an amazing thing that a small business owner can really take advantage of. If you're going to go buy a business and have equity in your own small business, it's hugely powerful to save you taxes later on. Mm-hmm. But you have to do it, right in the first place to be qualified for that. So yeah, there's definitely stuff out there that I feel like we could have a whole show just about important things that people don't know about.
Oh yeah. It was buried in there, and I didn't even myself, as we were talking about before we started. I mean, till I really started digging and went to some updates, a figure that hadn't been updated since, at least I know, since I've been dealing with taxes, the 1099 requirement to be issued at $600. That had been there for decades, as far as I know. Now it'll be $2,000 before you have to issue one. So that's just the small thing that could make less paperwork for businesses. So business owners. So that helps them out.
And that plays into the whole situation with Venmo and PayPal, and they were going to have to report everybody that was under $600 or over $600. Like, didn't matter what it was, they have to report it, right?
And that exists too.
Yeah, all that stuff. It is really interesting, but it can be tricky for sure. particularly because you have to pay attention to sources that are talking about it.
Oh, yeah.
And who wants to talk about it?
Except us. Yeah. And then the few social media advisors that people will go to a various social media source and, oh, they said I could do this, or they said I could do this. It's like, well, that's not exactly right. They're quite exaggerating. I don't know how many times you hear that, but I hear it quite a bit there.
A lot. So much so that my team here is pushing me to do reaction videos to bad tax advice online. Like, okay, all right, maybe we'll do that. There is a lot of it.
Oh, yeah. There's tons of it running across there. So you have a great business there, Accent Financial Services. So, and we've talked about it. Obviously, you're in the trenches. You're talking to real people with real problems. So how about a rewarding transformation you've witnessed when somebody does finally get control of their tax situation?
Oh, man. I will say, well, there's been a couple that have been remarkable just on account of the dollars. But I will say from a personal standpoint, there's some people that we help out along the way that they're just getting started and they're really trying to make sure they do things the right way.
Hmm.
And maybe it's because they're a little bit afraid of what's going to happen. Maybe it's because they know that there's things that they might not know about or might not be good at, and they want some help right from the beginning. And we've had a couple clients, and I bought this company like 3.5 years ago, but the company's been around for 40 years.
Oh, wow.
And we have generations of clients at this point. There's a family that we helped the grandparents with their businesses.
Oh, wow.
We helped parents with their businesses. And then we just started helping the kids start their own business.
Oh, wow.
And over the last couple of years, watching them grow, taking after the family entrepreneurial spirit and going out there and doing stuff, which is so awesome to see anyways. But to watch people try to do things right and then have just remarkable success, not only with the strategies that we've helped them put together, because that's ancillary to where their real efforts are, right? But to see people go out there and really make something out of nothing is amazing. We have some great stories like that where, it's just helping people right from the beginning is so neat.
It's very, very rewarding. Well, I got to go right with you on that right away as far as helping one from the beginning there. Myself, I have one of my business's longtime clients there. They went out, they started their business. I mean, it's almost 20 years we've been working together. They came in to my office and said, we want to do this, 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 and this. And I was like, first of all, I was like surprised he was going to do it because I didn't expect him because he had a good job where he was working. And then he decided, no, I was like, okay, well, we need to start here. And then, so we started there. Then we kept building and building. And he was my first $1 million business in gross sales. So it is very rewarding. And because this is where the proactive and taking it right from the beginning works. See, I haven't had to really fix any tax issues for him because one, we've never had any.
Yeah.
Because we make sure sales taxes are paid. We make sure his payroll taxes are paid. We make sure everything is paid. We make sure his tax filings are all done. So you do it right from the beginning. You don't need to come and spend a lot of money to fix it. You need to spend the money up front and be willing to talk to a professional that's in the accounting side so that you avoid all those issues in the first place there.
Yeah.
And then a few years ago, I got another business I started working with, and they've grown from 2 people. And now they have almost 20 employees. So it's pretty impressive. So that's a definite transformation that you can have just by being proactive there. Yes, I'll admit, as I talk about on this podcast, yes, I like to fix tax problems, but yet there's also great satisfaction in helping a business owner to succeed. And so if I can help them do that, that's just as fulfilling in a way. So, So anyway, also we see that in your described, you talk about, you have CFO services in addition to tax planning. So how do those work together? And how do we integrate these so powerfully for business owners trying to scale up?
Yeah. Well, so, it's interesting because I feel like there's people who can go the CFO route and people who can go the tax route and go the business strategy or marketing strategy. There's so many different things out there that it's all connected, by the fact that it's all your business, but being able to tie some of those concepts directly to each other is, maybe a little bit obscure. For me, the CFO and the fractional CFO and tax strategy, the tax strategy is usually on a personal basis, but inside your personal life is your business, and your business is you. So while we're building a strategy for maybe this is what your business is going to be doing, and this is how it's going to make money, and this is how it's going to impact your tax strategy, and you're going to take this money out at this time and go do this thing and do this thing, the business needs a person to do that same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so people would come to me and say, well, listen, I want to taxsmith my business. Well, that's not really what taxsmithing is about. Taxsmithing is a personal thing. At the end of the day, your business is you.
Mm-hmm.
And we want you and your taxes and your situation to be set up the way that you need it to be set up. Your business, you could sell that tomorrow, and it doesn't have anything to do with your strategy. Well, it might if you're planning on selling it. But then the idea of okay, well, how do I take some of these concepts and use it to maximize my business strategies? Or if I'm going to fine tune my life, how do I also fine tune my business so that it's making good decisions as well? So I see them as, for people who have their own business, to me, it really goes hand in hand. And let me help you with your personal stuff, and let me help you with your business stuff, and we'll make sure that those things are aligned. So that's really why I got into that particular piece, because people had more questions. And I felt like, okay, I need a different avenue to be able to address these other questions that you have.
Because invariably they come up with a question that it's like, kind of get that blank stare, but we want to help them. We want to figure out a way to do it. And certainly we figure it out, or we find someone who can.
Yeah.
Know where to send them. I know in my case, they ask me a question and I'm like, I cannot go there. That is a legal question. So you need to go speak to your attorney about that and ask them that question. There are times you've encountered this where sometimes people will ask us for legal advice. And it's like, frankly, my E&O doesn't cover legal advice, so I'm not going to do it. I'm going to suggest you go talk to so-and-so about this, or your attorney, or if you don't have one, I'll see if I can find someone who can take that question for you. But most of my clients have their attorney, so I don't have to worry about it too much. But still, there's questions sometimes that we do refer out like that there. And certainly we want to help them to get there, find the answers so that they can definitely move forward and avoid the tax issues that I like to fix, but let's not get there in the first place. It's very fascinating. I love, once again, we look back at Unfinished Empire. How about your own unfinished empire? Where do you see yourself, Accent Financial Services, and how you help entrepreneurs build their financial clarity and wealth? Where do you see that going and getting to?
I'll tell you the biggest thing that I'm doing next, and I'll say I have two really important ones that I'm working on. The biggest one is Taxsmithing. And what I really want to do is teach other firms how to do Taxsmithing. And so that's kind of becoming its own company of doing licensing and training on how to help people spread the strategies around. I definitely have seen it over the last 18 months or so, where there are more and more companies that are trying to do tax strategy, and maybe only trying to do tax strategy instead of doing accounting and tax prep and resolution and all of that stuff. But there's so much space in the market for that, and there's so much need for that.
Yes.
That I want it to be a thing. And the way that I've been trying to build and position Taxsmithing is I want it to be something that many people can offer and help people all around the country with a lot of these concepts. At the same time, a lot of that Taxsmithing is about educating tax preparers or EAs or whoever it is that wants to be able to teach more, because we know that there's many, many people that need that education. Nobody needs that education more than kids right now. And we're in a particularly strange place for, our last two generations. The financial world is tough for them. I have two kids. I have a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old.
Hmm.
I look at how I'm going to try to instill financial acumen into them. And I started coming up with this idea, this thing in the back of my head of being able to do kids classes and like kids financial summer camps. And I want to do it by using board games and attach financial concepts to different board games and different lectures, and then be able to get some of that knowledge into kids in a way that will just be ingrained with them for the rest of their life. And it doesn't have to, because I think back to like home ec when I was in school, right? Like, okay, they taught you how to balance your checkbook, and that was kind of it. Like, all right, well, nobody has checkbooks anymore. And now, you do things with Cash App here and, spin up company over here. And you can spin up a company in 5 minutes, or you can go start driving for Uber Eats or something. And all of a sudden you have a business and you have no idea what to do. And I just think that there isn't enough education in the school system to really help people do that type of stuff. So I hope I can get it kicked off this year. I don't know. It's already February, so it's
Yes.
running away from me. But at the very least, I want to get it started next year, where I do a nonprofit with the intention of helping teach kids financial education.
Oh, that's excellent. I really think that's so wise and smart, because you do see that lack of education in the education system. And so it's good that, you have that idea. Could be definitely sounds like something that can be built upon there. And I like the idea of the camps as well, and your strategy and your plan to go forward there. So yeah, it's looks like you got some great visions ahead there as far as for your own unfinished empire. And one thing I always find encouraging and I really like is when tax professionals share their knowledge, their experience with other tax professionals, because it overall helps the industry. Because I have found myself, when I go and do education courses and classes, I've always, at least for me, the most effective ones have always been from those individuals who are actually doing it in the trenches. They're not teaching tax at a college. They're actually there. They're going through the season. They got their own clientele. They know exactly what it's like. And so certainly strategies that they have, then like ones that you have that can share to help prevent tax issues in the first place, or to be able to move forward even if you have tax issues, so that once you get those fixed, then you have these strategies in place so that it prevents it in the future, and you're able to move forward with a lot of confidence, be able to sleep better at night. So there's so much there, and I'm certainly hope that idea, that plan you have of sharing the taxsmithing with other professionals, that definitely comes to fruition for you. That sounds like that'll be very, very educational for ones to share. Yeah, there is more advisory needed in this world that we live in tax-wise, and as we see the industry changing. So it's good, and that's the kind of professional that anyone should look for. Someone who's not just looking for the afterthought, but wanting to help you go forward, and then become a part of a team, have a relationship, so that it's not just a once a year thing, but it's a constant process. Don't have to meet every month. It just depends. Everybody's need is different. Some can get away with quarterly, some monthly, but it just depends. But certainly try to keep it in their head there. We really appreciate that there, Ryan. You've really been great there. Any final thoughts here?
As we do all of these podcasts and everything, and we meet other people in the industry, there's so much hope in it, I think. And talking to somebody like you and the things that you're doing, like it's great, because we need so much more of the people in the tax and accounting world. And when I get to meet people like you that really believe that and really preach that to everybody else, and I think it's fantastic. So thank you for doing all of the things that you're doing.
And thank you for doing all you're doing, Ryan. What an incredible conversation we've had here. It's so nice to get reminders that financial freedom isn't just about avoiding the IRS, isn't about just filing on time. It's about a strategy, a vision, having courage to build something meaningful, which when you have assistance from ones like either Ryan or myself, that is worth protecting, and you need to work hard to protect what you've created. And certainly through these strategies, visions, you can do it. But once again, as I talk about so many times, if you are losing the sleep over the tax debt, the unfiled tax returns, the IRS notices, you're not alone. You do have help. You don't have to call an 800 number from all of these ads that are on all over the place from these big companies. No, you can have a very personalized service. Yes, just by visiting taxreliefcall.com, you can start sleeping better at night. My team and I are so ready to find you solutions, reduce your burden, help you get the peace of mind you deserve, so finally you can get a good night's rest. Until next time, this is Marcelino Dodge, the Tax Answers Advisor, where questions meet real answers.